also tell you, the government themselves admitted that since the economy is so bad, they're increasing the tax of the people in the very first place, right? The Jordanian citizens in the very first place. Secondly, they're also reducing tax from these employers and whatnot. So I think this is a question of feasibility as to how they're going to incorporate and like possibly incorporate all of this given the economic problems in the very first place. Secondly, they come up and talk about as to how there is going to be bargaining chips and influx of foreign firms in the very first place. But that happens in our side of the world too. Recognize the fact that the world knows, and especially the Arab region knows, as to how Jordan has been playing an important role in the very first place. And they have been allowing UNHCR camp regions to be set up in those regions. Secondly, for early 2000s, they're welcoming these refugees in the very first place. So the Jordanian government has done a lot for these people, and the international media and organizations like United Nations and World Bank know how important Jordan is playing a role. So the bargaining chip and the foreign funds that they're talking about will likely be present in our side of the world too in the very first place. Currently, they come up and talk about as to how more innovation will happen in their side of the world as new amount of people with different diverse skill sets in the very first place will come in the workplace in the very first place. Two reasons why it is untrue. First of all, recognized peoples are not like high-skilled people in the very first place. They are low-income people in other countries. Now they have come to Jordan as refugees. So it's much more likely these people already don't have certain skill sets. Just because they're Iranian or Iraqi, they don't have certain skill sets in the very first place. Secondly, you have to train these people and give them vocational training, which will require a lot of resources. Something which you already have invested in the Jordanian people, still haven't managed to ensure employment for all these people. So you know how you're going to suddenly train these people and give them certain skill sets and aggressively suddenly incorporate them in the workplace in the very first place. Come up and talk about how social assimilation will happen in their side of the world in a better way. We tell you that is untrue for two specific reasons in the very first place. Firstly, it's extremely intuitive. The Jordanian people are extremely pleased their jobs are being taken away, and as to how this aggressive, and as to how their places are being taken away. But secondly, we tell you when actively incorporate this, meaning you're aggressively doing this. So rather than normal cultural integration that was previously taking place in a slower context, what you're essentially doing is you're actually pushing the process and actually aggressively incorporating these people without making sure the Jordanian people are accepting in the very first place. This breaks down the total government PM speech. So now moving on to our constructive. So our main constructive is as to how it's going to piss people off, and it will be highlighted in the election, and why that is extremely bad in the active interest of the government in the very first place. So premise of this argument. And this already explained what actively incorporating means. Actively incorporating means you're actually rushing the process, you're giving away more permits, you are essentially fast-tracking the process rather than the normal status quo where people were actually mingling and were passively being integrated. So given that context is true, I think so what will happen? So the point in time you come up, issue a lot of work permit, given that there is job crisis and there is much more unlikely for these people to get jobs and there is economic unemployment, two questions will arise. The Jordanian people will ask, so look, you haven't already given us job. How is it likely that you are suddenly coming up and allowing this work permit, and how are you going to incorporate these people as basic space? Secondly, we actively put the government a burden to prove, since they have actively failed to create jobs for these people in the very first place. How are they going to suddenly open up jobs for these people in the very first place, given that there is economic crisis in the very first place? Secondly, we tell you as to how it's going to piss the Jordanian people in the very first place. So recognize the fact that since refugees are less likely to be highly skilled and will probably get into a very technical or job requires extreme amount of education, it's much more likely that the blue-collar jobs will get work permits to incorporate into normal blue-collar jobs in the very first place. So for example, it's much more likely that they're probably going to replace the normal people in workplaces like petrol pump, construction sites, etc. in the very first place. Why is it extremely problematic for the Jordanian people and the Jordanian government in the very first place? So recognize the fact that Jordanian people have a notion that I have already been a welcoming host for you for a very long time. I have evacuated extreme important regions to set up UNHCR camp and UNHCR camp. Hardly recognize the fact that the UNHCR won't probably provide all sorts of resources to like incorporate these work permits or create jobs in the welfare space. So the resources that will be required to like give this work permits and train them will be much more likely to come from government in the welfare space. In conclusion, Jordanian people will always be in a state of active threat and panic that it's much more likely that their jobs are going to be replaced in the welfare space. And secondly, we tell you employers already have an active incentive to like hire these refugees for a much lower prices, meaning it's finalized that the jobs of these people will much likely be replaced. So what is the conclusion of this? What is the it will be reflected in the election. So the impact of this election will be extended by my DLO. So that's why I think we win this debate.
All right, I'd like to thank that speaker for that speech. In order to continue the case for side proposition, I'd like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister. Yeah.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, you're audible.
Sorry, I'll start my speech in like 10 seconds. All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let's talk about Jordanian economy. We think when it comes to Jordan, they have a severe problem of a slow economic growth. And the government, or at least the authority of Jordan, has recently said that they would like to accept something like a austerity measured policy, which means that they are going to have an expansionary monetary policy, because expansionary monetary policy, but at the same time, they're going to increase taxes in order to gain more revenue for the government. And the problem with that thing is, or at least their goal is, that they want to increase jobs. They want to increase employment as soon as possible, but at the same time, they want to increase revenue. Now, that is a very hard thing to do. And the way of doing that is that you need extensive amount of labor in order to force all the employers of your country. And how can it be done? That is the challenge of this bill. The problem with the opposition is that they don't introduce an idea to solve the problem, and they discourage the idea that we introduce. Our idea of solving the problem was, if there is a lot of people that you can employ, the possibility of you hiring those people is a lot higher. Now, why is it important to give you a legal notice, or at least a legal document, that you can hire these people and there is not going to be a problem? Since these people are refugees and there are going to be multicultural and diversified backgrounds, these people, hiring these people is a challenge. So only in established communities of Jordan, as our PM already said, is going to be the places, or at least are going to be the places where people get hired. The problem is that if I don't have a legal notice, people are likely going to pay me less. At the same time, they are going to exploit my non-existence to the government in a way that does not serve me very well. What it does is that since I don't have a legal document and I don't have a job, at least likely if I have a job, I'm paid less, I am not going to pay taxes as much, which means the rate of taxes is going to go down. But at the same time, they also have a problem with increasing taxes. They say that if increasing taxes is a thing that we have to do, how can we reduce taxes for employees? Think about it. If I am an employer and taxes are reduced for me, that means I can employ 2 or 3 more people in my company. That means 2 or 3 more taxpayers for the government. And that is why creating more jobs in a legal way is going to help you in 2 different ways. Number 1, give you more revenue, as there is going to be a lot more influx of taxpayers. But secondly, there is going to be a legal document backing up a certain refugee in order for that refugee to be employed. Second rebuttal, they say that the funding is going to be in both words. This is not true, because when it comes to funding, or when it comes to international FDIs, the thing that the international community most often wants is a backup from the government. They want the steps taken by the government to be incorporated in the economy. If they don't see that the government does not recognize these immigrants or these refugees as the legal immigrants in your own country, that means those people in outside of your country, the international community is going to be reluctant in terms of giving you investments. The problem with this is that since Jordan is an economy that is struggling, since Jordan needs a lot of FDIs, Jordan is probably not going to get that because the government has been conservative enough to not give refugees the legal identification, but rather comparatively much greater in our world, because the government has active incentive to help businesses in terms of giving them labor, in terms of recognizing that the labor that they're getting. Number three, the problem that they try to identify is that people are not going to be as skilled in terms of labor. Well, people are not the skill matrix of Jordan economy is not very high, which means anyone probably with a high school diploma can work in almost every single job that Jordan economy has to offer. Probably not software engineering, probably not hardware engineering or doctor, but at the same time, all the other jobs can be done, which means the skill demand is not very high. At the same time, if you're talking about vocational training that Ahnaf has already said, these things can be done with almost everyone in the population, which means they are going to have the language training probably, although they already speak almost a similar language, they probably have a bit of cultural training or at least acceptance training. They're going to have some amount of vocational training in terms of building infrastructure, and that's it. That's all you need in terms of providing help to Jordan economy, which means it's not a huge problem. It's rather something that you can achieve. Why do we think that it is much more feasible to achieve economic growth and prosperity for Jordan and social assimilation? That is for two different reasons. Number one, when it comes to how markets work, we feel that each and every single person comes to your economy, and if that person works, that person becomes a worker. But at the same time, in order to preserve that person's life, that person needs to become a consumer, which means a market is growing. At the same time, if I have a permit to work in your market legally, that means I have to pay taxes. That market is now legitimate. Not only that market pays your taxes and works, that market consumes your product. That means gives much more room for employers who provides substance in your market to have a bigger audience to buy from. At that moment, your businesses are booming. At that moment, the people in your market have a lot more jobs. That means the market is greater in Jordan. If I have a legal market in Jordan, that means I have two different impacts. Number one, we have increased consumer demands, which means now the employees of Jordan are going to be much more better off in our world, because they are likely going to have a larger market to prosper in. But secondly, when it comes to small businesses growth, especially in the context of Jordan, they actually have a lot of small businesses that needs a lot of employees in terms of their day-to-day survival. In terms of when it comes to 1960s and afterwards, Jordan has a lot of dependence on refugees, but they have never been legalized, which means these businesses always have to depend on refugees, but they are always reluctant to hire them. At this exact point, we are going to help these small businesses hire those people and make them incorporate in their businesses. Why is it exclusive? Because when we have a legal permit, these refugees can be regulated, which means they are going to be in our economy as a legal citizen. They are not going to be subjected to human trafficking or exploitations because they are not recognized, but rather now we recognize that they can file cases, they can be a significant part of our economy. But secondly, there are other opportunities of assimilation. So they can move here and there in rural areas, they can get different jobs, they can provide CVs of their jobs, they can use online job portals, and all these things can be done economically. But secondly, how does it help in terms of social assimilation? Think about it. If you have a business, if you have three workers from these three different countries, and every one of them are legal immigrants or legal refugees, there is going to be a much more importance and dependence on those refugees. That means the social acceptance and cultural assimilation is likely going to prosper and thrive in our world compared to the world of government, where they can exploit them, and in terms of making them their slaves, or at least in terms of making them pay
Hi,
less,
I'm sorry
and
to
they're getting
intervene.
the only thing that
Time's
is
up.
much more likely.
All right, I'd like to thank that speaker for that speech and also reminding everyone that anything after 7:15 will not be considered. Uh, Having said that, I would like to invite the second speaker, opposition. Here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you.
Okay. I'll just be starting in 10 seconds. All right. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Listening to the two government speakers, it feels like that hosting refugees and integrating to your workforce is something of an economic miracle. And if that was true, every country would be now rushing to like host all the refugees and then boom their economy and suddenly becoming the most wealthiest nation in the whole earth. I don't think the world works like that. And I think that hosting refugees itself is a very draining process. And you cannot just claim that just magically integrating them into my economy is going to boost it. I'm going to show you structurally why that's not going to happen first. And secondly, I'm going to show you why your economy is going to get worsened. But thirdly, I'm also going to show you that why this is an actor motion. I don't really think that they understand what an actor motion is and why it's the government's best incentive to do to not give this active work permits. Right. So firstly, some basic point of engagements, right? So as they say that the way their argument works is that I'm going to give them training, then create more jobs and have more taxes from those people, and then I'm going to boom my economy, right? First question, if you were able to create this much job as a government, if you had that like capability, why didn't you do so for the past like 20 to 30 years, right? So why weren't you able to do that for normal Jordanian people, and now you can suddenly do it for refugees, right? So all these refugees, and the number is not like very insignificant, it's a huge number, and you have to create like revolutionize your economy and workforce. I don't really know how they're going to do it. Absolutely no mechanization from their side of the house, right? But secondly, I think it's more like they're more unlikely to do it because housing you is already like housing all these refugees is already very draining process on the Jordanian government. It's not like always UNHCR supports them and UNHCR always like manages the fund. The regular taxpayers of Jordanian people also have to contribute to this housing process of these refugees, right? So you're already very drained to host all these refugees. So how you're going to have all these people. But thirdly, unemployment crisis is extremely, extremely high on Jordanian, like normal Jordanian people. Like it's almost as high as 25%. I really don't know how you then going to like employ like just by giving them a high school diploma and then improve your economy, right? So now understand that even in their best case, if I am going to argue that they are going to create jobs and after that high school diploma is going to integrate people, I'm like, let's now go to that case and why that's very bad for those people. Firstly, understand that the jobs that they are talking about, you are going to get through like a high school diploma. It's probably very like less paying jobs, like probably a sewing machine or like a very small business, a store, like whatnot. Firstly, is that things like this already pay you very less, like probably just like $10 or $20 or like $30, $50 after the month. I really don't know how they're going to pay a huge amount of tax after like this short amount of salary, right? But secondly, why not normal Jordanian people? Why can't I do it with my own people who already know how my economy works, who already know the cultural aspects of my economy, right? But thirdly, how is this small businesses that I'm going to influx my economy with, like saturate my economy with small businesses and people with that low level skill is going to boost my economy? If that was the case, Bangladesh would be the like wealthiest nation in the world because it has the most amount of informal economies right now, right? But it's like the small businesses do not boost your economy. I'm sorry, but like why it's bad? Because you're going to actively drain your resources, right? You're actively going to push your resources out from your like booming sectors, like technical sectors, like IT sectors, service sectors, like medical sectors, healthcare professionals, etc. You're going to actively drain money from there and train all of these refugees who are huge in numbers. So even if you have to pay a very little amount for every particular individual, their sheer number makes the share a huge amount of money. So you cannot invest your money into those promising sectors and have to take money from there and now invest them here, right? Now, when you do that, the moment you do that, firstly, you cannot get any particular benefit because these like economies are very informal in general and don't give you a huge profit margin. They do not like contribute in exports, imports anyway. But secondly, you also like suffer more because you cannot invest into those promising sectors that might give you like service sectors and IT sectors that bring in huge amount of exports and huge amount of foreign money in the first place, right? So for all of those reasons, I really don't think the argument like makes any sense. Firstly, not feasible, and even if they were, that's not going to give you any particular well-being, right? Now I'm going to talk about the responsibility of the state. What is a particular responsibility of the state? I'm sorry, even if I like screw over the refugees, I'm okay with that as long as I'm good with my own Jordanian people, right? Because understand, hosting those refugees is something that I went out of my way to do, right? As Jordanian government, I really didn't have the responsibility. I could have closed the borders, but I didn't. That's on my well-being or my goodwill, right? So the moment I do that is firstly, I'm on a moral high ground. You have no right to question my ideas when I like don't give them enough jobs because I have saved your life already. But secondly, understand, responding to humanitarian crisis or like responding to refugee issues like gets less prioritized when it's compared against how am I treating my own citizens, right? Why is that so important? Because these are people who pay me taxes and like give me money to run the economy or run the country. So firstly is that these people are the most like, even if I consider principally just talking about responsibility, these are the people who are the most entitled to get the jobs in the first place because they or their forefathers or their family members are the one who are paying the tax money in the first place. Why would I not give the jobs to normal Jordanian people and rather employ all of these people, right? But secondly, as I have already said, that you are going to take money from promising sectors like educational sectors or like other industrial sectors. So normal Jordanian people will also have less amount of access to these things in the first place, right? And and thirdly, my second speaker have already explained to you how that's going to explain to you how that's going to take away job. Even if that doesn't take away the job, the just notion of actively integrating them creates a huge amount of fear mongering among normal Jordanian citizens that like angers those people against that government, right? What do government have in incentive? Government has to win elections. And in order to win elections, you need the support of your voter base. I'm sorry, refugees are not going to vote for me, but rather these people are going to vote for me who am I angry. So in order to keep those people in my side, I really need to give them the jobs and really not to like fearmonger those people. So for that reason, I think that we have to do this. But lastly, they also talk about foreign investment that's going to come. I'm already housing you. I already have the most amount of refugees in my world. If that doesn't give me foreign investment, if that doesn't appeal to the like foreign investors, I really don't know how just giving a legal permit is going to give me that because I already have that bargain chip. I really don't need to go further. So for all of those reasons, we believe the status quo is better. The normal integration process is much better. That serves everything. Extremely powerful.
All right, I'd like to thank that speaker for their speech. In order to continue the case for side proposition, I'd like to invite the proposition whip here.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
I'm starting. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let's just look at what the opposition wants. The end goal, the conclusion of our opposition bench is to win election by pleasing your population, by ensuring a people's vote, right? Except Jordan doesn't have election. Why? Because Jordan is a monarchy, and their current King Abdullah, has been in place since 1999. A crisis like Arab Spring, which brought down some of the biggest dictators in the Middle East, couldn't bring him down, and they think as small and tiny issues like unemployment can bring it down. Like I mean, I know it sounds absurd, but comparing to Arab Spring, the unemployment issue is like nothing, and we're going to show you why it doesn't even happen at that space. Which means the conclusion, the goal that the opposition wants to achieve is blatantly wrong, and it doesn't exist in the first place in the current world. First point. Secondly, what do they tell you in mostly? They try to tell you that jobs are being taken away, and why are you not investing in Jordanian people in such ways? I'm going to rebut it in an extensive layer. First of all, why our jobs are not being taken away? I guess they have confused Jordan with USA, and this is why where the election and some sort of words are coming from them. We believe, first of all, refugees have completely different skill sets, and exclusively this exists in Jordan. In Jordan, refugees works in agriculture, manufacture, construction, and small businesses, whereas the Jordanian people's biggest employment, like 97% of them are employed in services and public sectors and education sectors, which means the skill sets they require to be employed are completely different. And the reason Jordanian people are unemployed is because their sectors are already filled with the people that they want, and they do not possess the skill that their economy currently needs. When we believe, even if this is not something you want, we believe if your people are more, if your refugees are more integrated in your economy, what this creates is cheap refugee labor, and this increases foreign investment in your country, because obviously investors want your labor to charge you less in order to see yourself as a viable investment options. And we believe that in these cases, the business owners, the small business owners in Jordan gets to employ these people more. And what happens in this case is they can in these cases they can fulfill the needs of these people. And obviously these refugees can be future business owners, which can increase the employment ratio of your country. Why would UNHCR help us, and why we are not doing it with common Jordanian people? First of all, you have to understand, spending money after refugees is completely mutually inexclusive. Like, they cannot tell us that when these refugees are just sitting ducks in their economies, they are not already spending money on them. They cannot explain a mechanism like such. Like, they cannot say money is not being spent after them regardless. We give you benefits of them being integrated in economics, which I will come to later. And we believe UNHCR will obviously invest in the skills and trainings that we're going to do, because why would not they? They question you, that they say that UNHCR will not help us, UNHCR will not help you. They have helped in Turkey, they have helped in Uganda, they have helped in Bangladesh. What is the mechanical reasons? What is their incentive to not help here? They literally exist for this exact reason. They exist for refugee management. Why would not they help us? They have absolutely no mechanical reasoning here. They cannot give us a better alternative for these people. And why are we not investing after Jordanian people? Two very important reasons. One, Jordanian local people are not going to leave their homes to work in rural areas, which we have proven that the jobs for these refugees are mainly present in rural areas, in industry plants in rural areas, in agricultural fields in rural areas. And Jordanian local people are simply not going to wake up and say, oh, I'm going to leave my city and live in that rural area, which is very much possible for the refugees, because obviously this is not their lands and they do not have that much connection with it. And secondly, which is something I've already proved, skill differences. Jordanian people are more skilled and more interested in one sort of occupations, and these people and refugees are interested in some different sort of occupation. You have to understand, your opposition doesn't give you any alternative that is better than us. All they do is criticize our case and say, oh, this can happen, this can happen, oh, you are going to lose election. But what does happen in their case when you do not integrate these people? What happens is they keep sitting in your economy, they do not pay your tax, they take your money, because obviously, like they said, UNHCR is not going to provide you all of the money that you need to maintain these people. Your economy still suffer from the labors that they need. Your economy still pays for these people in this economic crisis situation, and they do not have any solution for it. And obviously, you cannot push back these refugees, because you are Jordan, you are historically a refugee friendly country, and your people are welcoming to these refugees. What do we tell you and what do we show you? We show you how this boosts your economy in multiple layer. It increases the amount of laborer presence in your economy. It increases the amount of consumer. It increases the amount of taxpayers, and also it increases the amount of foreign investments. In the beginning of our case, we told you Jordan has taken austerity measures, which means that they need more taxes, they need to cut their budget deficits, and all the benefits that we have provided you are perfect are perfect for their current economic condition to fulfill the goals of the austerity measures. We show you how social assimilation is done, and the rural areas that were built on or built by these refugee people for generation or for decades requires these refugees. And if you legalize them, this increases not only if you legalize them, not only this increases the level of refugee operation, because do you need it, like from an actor lens, you need less refugee operation because you do not want negative publicity which can reduce your fund from UNHCR and all the other international countries and organizations that you are receiving from. This is completely from an actor lens. We're not talking about just refugee benefit for the sake of their benefits. We believe we give you, first of all, economic benefits here. We give you social benefits as the cultural integration or the overall overarching Jordan society being integrated with these refugees gives you benefits that might have previous speakers have told you. We give you in intensive infrastructure development where refugees can be better bargaining chip with more in being more integrated and with better conditions. We give you foreign investments and we give you foreign aids. Overall, we give you a solution to the current Jordanian crisis. What they give you is words of they give you words of criticism and and a conclusion that does not exist in real life. Very proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank that speaker for that speech. In order to complete the substantive part of case from side opposition, I'd like to invite the opposition whip here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, firstly, I will start off with some responses to the outlandish claims that government just has been said. It is very clear that they just Googled up some information about the Jordanian government and do not completely understand how a constitutional monarchy works, because the first ever word that comes out of government with is completely untrue, right? Like, a constitutional monarchy, like one that exists in United Kingdom, still has elections, right? And even if elections didn't exist, even as a monarchy, even in their best case scenario, right, would still require support from your citizen, right? So their first point of attack in general falls through completely. Firstly, elections still do happen in Jordan because it's a constitutional monarchy like kingdom where you still have legislative local governments. And secondly, even if it were a complete monarchy, you would still need support from your, like from your citizen, because even in those cases, schools can still happen and governments can still be taken down. Firstly, in terms of governmental support, it still comes to our side of the world where you support your citizen more. Secondarily, they commented outlandish claim. Look, humanitarian figures like UNHCR will suddenly pay for all sorts of integration that happens for refugees. So understand how complicated the refugee crisis in the world is, right? So, for example, in Bangladesh there is also a refugee crisis of Rohingyas. Like, so understand that in terms of like UN or UNHCR, UNHCR or UN didn't just suddenly come up and offer to pay for all the expenses of Rohingyas, right? Understand in all the crises of the world, it is very hard exclusively for like international organizations to prioritize where to send money from. Given Jordan's track record of being friendly with refugees in general, it is more likely that Jordan has incentively, like actively helped monetarily these refugees in the first place, right? And secondarily, it also they give us no mechanistic incentive as to just because these foreign investing sites have like they were built up on that foundation that they will actively help these people and not rely on any sort of governmental grant or any sort of governmental grant, right? On a secondary layer, understand that even in terms of wanting to lobby for this sort of financial help or asking from help for like other countries or other foreign incentive structures, Jordan still had to invest a lot of capital and a lot of money to increase these diplomatic efforts and increase these forms of a cooperation with UNHCR or with foreign other countries, right? So understand, even in their worst case, even if UNHCR were to pay for everything, Jordan still has to pay extensively and still has to pay extensively to come up with reports of how many people the refugees they have,
like creating a complete census, creating how like these people's age groups and all of these things. This entire legislative and bureaucratic structure, we believe, already necessitates a lot of funding and a lot of capital that they do not respond to even in their worst case. And we have told you mechanistically, it is more likely in general in terms of host countries do pay a lot for their refugees to house their refugees. So, for example, Bangladesh in general has dedicated an entire part of land for Rohingyas, and the UNHCR or the UN did not dictate or help Bangladesh in doing so. Bangladesh did it so out of their goodwill or out of increasing their foreign image. So understand Jordan had an active incentive to do that before, and they have been doing that by investing money into these things. So with that mechanism done, understand how these active incorporation in general, or this active incentive in general also increases the chance of these things being fast tracked. So understand when these things are fast tracked, these mechanisms get cloudy of you trying to vet these individuals. Right? So when you try to show me that firstly, my first and second speaker have already told you how the taxpayer money is firstly mitigated, because in these cases, these are very low income jobs. So in cases where you get some form of taxpayer money from these individuals, it is very less. On a secondary layer, understand that the amount of money, the amount of capital you're putting in right now to give them 6 layers of training, right? You're giving them vocational training, you're giving them like tax cuts, you're giving them subsidies. All of the things that government proposes outweighs the capital incentive that you get from taxpayer money, right? So understand that the money you're investing already outweighs the money that you might get, and it is more likely that you would be at a net loss from your side of the world. So that deals with the two most strongest arguments that opposition have of monetary benefit. Right? Understand that they never respond to any of our arguments about a state's responsibility towards its citizen and a state's responsibility to who they should cater for. Right? So this deals with government whip. Now we will talk about the clashes of this debate and how we take this debate in both of these clashes. Right? So firstly, like the obvious clash, right? This is an after motion, and it has been like incentivizedly like pushed from both of our speakers. Understand you need to talk from the perspective of what is in the best interest of the Jordanian government. Right? So understand the Jordanian economy is already extremely crippled. Like sectors like healthcare and IT and financial safety nets are extremely crippled. Why has this happened? Right? Things like the COVID crisis has already impacted this, but also secondarily, because 10 to 12 years of housing 760,000 refugees, it has included immense pressure on the economy, where the Jordanian government is struggling to how to cater to all of this entire huge population. Right. On a secondary layer, understand that this is the age of information technology, and this is the age where to boost an economy, you need to advance in sectors like information technology and advance in sectors like manufacturing, like semiconductors, or manufacturing things that the new world needs. Right? Understand we do recognize the importance of sectors like manufacturing or like construction sectors, but understand that the very minute pay that comes or very minute contribution that happens from those instances do not help in growth of GDP of the country, right? Whereas focusing on healthcare and IT like increases those things. So how are you redistribution focus from those things? Because understand incorporation by the mechanism structure that you showed necessarily it's that you are taking away or redistributing money from the sectors that have the most possibility to boom your economy to sectors that do not boom your economy directly. So this is in the best interest of the Jordanian government. On a second level, understand from the perspective of citizens, right? So understand we've already told you the responsibility or the entitlement that citizens have as active taxpayers right now, right? We believe that pissing citizen off is not is like in contrast to the complete incentive structure of the Jordanian government, right? On thirdly, understand that there are Jordanian minorities as well that they do not ever include in their case, right? Understand that they only talk about Syrian refugees, and refugees are the only vulnerable actors in this debate in terms of the interest of the Jordanian government, right? Understand there are marginalized communities who are Jordanian citizens as well. And we believe that these individuals require much more help or are entitled to much more help from the Jordanian government than refugees in general. So I think first, why we take this class as well. And lastly, understand we've also told you how it's beneficial for refugees in general too, because we've told you that passive integration that is happening right now and the mechanistic faults that we've called out and help us tell you that the status quo is much more better in reintegrating them slowly, where the government has much more time and it's in their system. Thank you for this speech. Thank you for the time. Very proud to host.
I would like to thank that speaker for that speech. In order to summarize the case for side opposition, I'd like to invite the opposition reply speaker here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we already won this debate because a very lack of engagement from team government and really no response to our most crucial arguments. I'll show you why. So there were 3 main clashes, right? The clashes, I mean, point of contention. So firstly was what is in the interest of government. Secondly, how you're going to bring in economic development. And lastly, in terms of social aspirations. So firstly, why we win the point of interest of government. Look, we are the only side in the house that recognize the fact that this debate is about the incentive of government, not about like how I'm going to give refugees a better life, right? So for that, I think we already win that. But secondly, the point of response is not enough that you are going to say that like the only thing that elections do not happen in Jordan and that's why you do not have to care for your own people, right? So we say that firstly elections do happen, but even if elections didn't happen, government still had the incentive to deal with the like public anger and public fear mongering, right? They never responded to that. And we instantly win that argument because the moment you anger your own people, the moment you are in like active existential threat, they never deal with this point and they never act like they never give any responses as to why people will not be angered in the first place when you take away jobs from them, right? Why like when you have that active work permission issuing like on a huge scale, why wouldn't people be feared? Why wouldn't people be scared? And why would people still be welcoming to these Jordanian people even after paying huge amount of taxes? They never responded to that and we instantly win them. But secondly, in terms of economic development, we also win that because we tell you how Jordanian people are better equipped to serve your economy than those refugees, right? Because we already have showed to you how they have cultural ties, so they know what economic, like how the economy works, how the office works, how you are going to be able to contribute more, just in general, because like Jordanian people might mix with them more. But secondly, they also like contributing in IT sectors, contributing in advanced sectors that requires a huge amount of investments are actively barred on their side of the house that we showed. But also we also tell you why it's very like it's very improbable that you are going to go through first of 6 layers of training for immigrants, given that you already are like doing budget cuts, you're already having less amount of resources in the first place that you already agreed to. But secondly, even after you have those trainings and high school diplomas, you're not going to be able to contribute as much as you think. They say that we don't give a counter prop and we just criticize their case. Absolutely untrue, because the counterfactual is that you are not going to spend this amount of huge money that is going to go to West, right? That's the most rational decision. And I think that was given particularly in this speech. But then also regarding social assimilations, right? They talk about how they're going to have social assimilation, but never really analyze or mechanize how they're going to reach it. We are the only side in the house that shows that what goes on into normal Jordanian people mind. I'm going to pay my taxpayer money and I'm not going to have a job. That's a very dystopian situation. And that's not, I really don't know how that's going to help you in terms of social assimilation, right? And also, like when you have this kind of things, when people are scared, people just do not sit in house. There will be active clashes with like immigrants, and the welcoming phase and the honeymoon phase of like housing refugees are going to be over, right? The primary reason why we win this debate is because we identify the fact that jobs are very finite, and we also identify that fact that it's very hard to create more amount of jobs. We identify the reality better than the Gulf side, and we say it's better to not spend this huge amount of money just out of my goodwill, just out of my humanitarian response. I think for those reasons, we serve the world better. We as Jordanian government are on a better side, are on a better place, and hence we win this debate. Extremely oppose.
I would like to thank that speaker for that speech. In order to complete the case for proposition and to close out this debate, I invite the proposition reply speaker. Here.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes.
I'll start my speech in 5 seconds.
Hi, can you please mute yourself? I think probably the opposition.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, starting my speech in 3, 2. So the first problem that they have is that we are trying to get a huge number of people inside our country borders as Jordanian government. Note that this is not the debate. These people are already inside your border, which means that anything that passes on after this debate will not harm the number. 620,000 people are already in your border. They are coming in since 1960s. What they don't tell you is that what are their alternatives to help these people? What are their alternatives to feed these people? I don't know what they're doing. But at the same time, when we say that we have to incorporate them in our workforce, we have to make sure that these people are well fed, they have jobs. Now, suddenly they say, oh, no, these people are huge in number, we cannot accept them. I don't know how that actually works, but considering the fact that it's a competitive, we actually have the better side of this debate because we try to provide them with certain incentive of jobs so that they can contribute in the economy, and contribute is a big word. Secondly, they say, oh, okay, fine. Why not Jordanians? Well, we're trying to incorporate Jordanians, but the problem with an economic idea is that it is not possible if you don't have a large economy, which means that we need important and good businesses. How is that prosper? How does it prosper in our world, but does not in their world? Because the businesses that we are trying to help are businesses in low quality, SMEs, entrepreneurs, small businesses. When those things happen, since I have a construction firm, let's say I have a construction firm and I can hire 10 different people in order to expand my labor. At that point, I'm going to make more revenue to get a new accountant or get a new optimization engineer in my firm. That means that creates a much more important job and increases the benefit, increases the job market of Jordanian economy. This is how businesses prosper and get diverse. Every Jordanian life gets improved, services get improved, and that is why Jordanian people are not going to be angry. They'd rather be happy because these things are happening. But secondly, they confuse the idea of Jordan with a right-wing Western country that people are going to be angry because they are taking our jobs. The problem is Jordan has been dealing with since 63 years, since 1960s. They're not going to be angry. They'd rather be happy that these people are rather recognized in their economy, because right now, if I have an employee named Abdul, I'd rather have that employee trained, rather have that employee vocalized. I don't know why Jordanians are going to be angry about this. But thirdly, they say small businesses don't help boost your economy. Well, if it is Jordan, it does, which means small businesses means rural areas, SMEs, entrepreneurs, backbone of your economy in that rural area. If those things doesn't happen, ITs or anything that you say is not going to improve your economy, rather going to be much more expensive and not very polite. But fourthly, they say, oh no, where's the money coming from? All right, we're already doing it for a long time. We didn't need money. Now we have been feeding these refugees for a long time. We didn't need money, but somehow when we want to train them and get them jobs, we actually suddenly need money. Do you know what is more expensive? Sitting refugees and feeding them all the time is going to be much more expensive. Not helping them and not getting any help from them is going to be much more expensive. Low taxpayer numbers are going to be much more expensive. Slow growth of business is going to be much more expensive. And so we have a better competitive in terms of capital. But fourthly, they say that when it comes to investments, you already have them. UNHCR already helps you in terms of investments. No, they help us in terms of funding in different projects that we work on refugees, which means the money that you're talking about, which is significantly less than you actually portray, is rather coming from those funds. But secondly, when it comes to government, they say that I am trying to do this, which facts, new businesses, the funding in our world, the investments in our world, business investments are likely going to be comparatively higher. It's not symmetric. It's going to be comparatively higher in our world. They say, lastly, that taxpayer money is going to be a problem because now you have to reduce taxes for different businesses. When we say that the economy is growing, tax paying money is always going to be higher, which means it outweighs their claim that the money is going to be lower. But at the same time, let's go for a comparative just for the sake of it. 620,000 Jordanian people, Jordanian refugees paying $1 tax is going to contribute to 3% of Jordan's GDP in the last year. That's how much money you're talking about in terms of taxes. And so the idea of taxpayer money is going to be low is not going to be important in this debate. For all those reasons, we win this debate comfortably. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank that speaker for their speech. This completes the debate for the round. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah, all the debaters, please leave the room, go back to the main hall. And everyone else as well, except the judges. And can I please request for the recording to be stopped? Do we have someone from OC here? All right, so let's do this. The rest of the judges, can you please move with me to room 8? Or let's do room 7, perhaps. Let's move to room 7, all the judges.
Recording stopped.